Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Source Material. We are jumping back into a Star Wars-related discussion again this week. Recently, on yesterday's episode, which was the re-air of Star Wars Dark Empire, Boba Fett ended up returning to the Star Wars universe in that book. Now, I don't know if he had been in any comics prior to that, any of the Dark Horse comics prior to that. And I don't know about any of the novelizations. Never read them. Don't know much about what happens in there. So forgive me if Boba Fett had appeared prior to that. You know, this was Boba Fett showing up in the Dark Horse comics, but I know that he had showed up again in the Marvel comics. And just so happens, of the few Star Wars issues that I own, I actually own that issue. But I got to thinking, well, maybe I'm not right. I thought to myself, I will go ahead and read Star Wars 81, came out in 1984, published by Marvel, on shelves December 13th, 1983. Cover price was 60 cents, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics. I'm just going to kind of give you a lowdown of what happens in this issue. Supposedly, Boba Fett returns. Now, before we get into that, just to give you a brief synopsis as to what happened to Boba Fett prior to this. In the film Return of the Jedi, Boba Fett, who is a bounty hunter, one of the enemies of Han Solo, Boba Fett meets his demise while attempting to execute a sentence that Jabba the Hutt has ordered on Luke Skywalker. The plan was to put Luke Skywalker into the Sarlacc pit. A battle ensues as a rescue attempt occurs, and Boba Fett ends up falling into the Sarlacc pit. Now, according to the film mythology, Boba Fett does not return. I say the films. So, according to the films, he does not return, and he has met his end digesting in the Sarlacc over 1,000 years. However, Marvel Comics decided to bring him back. At least that's what I believed occurred in Star Wars number 81. Does Boba Fett return? Well, what I want to do is I want to give you a lowdown of what's happening in the comic and just kind of scan through the pages. Real off the cuff, don't have a synopsis here, don't have any of that. So as structured as I should have made this, this is just going to be a quick, maybe 20-minute episode. So here we go. The title of the story is Jawas of Doom. Writer Mary Jo Duffy, penciler Ron Frenz, inked by Tom Palmer, lettered by Joseph Rosen, and colored by Glynis Ween Oliver. Tom Palmer did the cover, and it's beautiful. It's almost got this painted quality to it. I don't know if it is. There's maybe some aspects to it that are painted, but on the front cover, it's Han Solo with his signature blaster, Princess Leia. Han Solo definitely looking like Harrison Ford here. Princess Leia, who looks a tad bit different. And then down at the bottom, we see C-3PO, and we see R2-D2, Chewbacca, some Jawas, the Jawas land cruiser there, the Millennium Falcon up in the top left, and then you see Boba Fett on Han Solo's left-hand side. So, what are we going to get here? Are we going to get a tale that happened prior to Jedi? No, that is not the case. So, Jawas of Doom starts out with, it looks like Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, the rest of the gang. And this is shortly after, I don't know how far after Jedi this is, but they're still on Endor, the Ewoks' home planet. And poor Han Solo is having a time with, I don't know who this guy is. He looks like an X-Wing pilot or some type of a pilot for the Resistance who's just telling them, hey, you owe me some money. And Han Solo's just like, look, man, did you know that I was one of the heroes of the fleet? I'm one of the heroes of the Resistance. And the guy's like, I don't care, dude. You've swindled me too many times and you owe me more money, and it's no wonder that you got a price on your head. So this guy's none too happy with Han Solo, and Han Solo is like, look, give me some time. Han Solo is constantly in debt, like always in debt. He's just trying to get by. But, as bad as those things are, and he's trying to get right with people, he's got his wife, Princess Leia. Well, actually, I don't know if they're married here. Well, he's got his girlfriend, so they're together, obviously, just like after the movies. Leia even offers to pay, or at least lend him some money, as she says, she was pretty rich at one point, even though her planet got destroyed. She's got credits, and Han Solo's like, no, I'm better than that. That's not the point. I've got to do this myself. But he's angry about it, too. So, Han goes and finds the Millennium Falcon, and his plan is to Oh yeah, there's a real tender moment here when he gets onto the Millennium Falcon. He walks in and he let Lando borrow the Millennium Falcon when they made their attack on the Empire, and he gets back in and he's making sure everything's in order. He finds his dice still hanging above his seat, and Chewbacca walks up, and Chewbacca growls at him his growl, and he says, "Chewie, no, nothing's wrong, pal." He goes, "I was just checking a few things out, making sure that what could possibly be wrong?" Anyway, Chewbacca grabs him and hugs him. Chewbacca understands this guy. It's mentioned that he was, frozen in carbonite, lost a bit of time due to being frozen in carbonite, and he just he's a little sad too. And Chewbacca grabs him and hugs him, which is pretty cool. Han says, okay. Han says, I've got a plan to go get some more money. He goes, there's money on other worlds for me. So him, Leia, and Chewbacca, R2-D2, hop into the Millennium Falcon, and they are heading back to Tatooine. He says, I had some money there stashed until I could get enough to pay off Jabba the Hutt. So they head over to Tatooine. So it says, while on Tatooine, we are taken back to the Sarlacc pit. All right, so we get a glimpse of what happens after Boba Fett fell into the Sarlacc pit. He fell, but shortly after falling into it, the Sarlacc pit belches him out. There is a loud burp, and it is written so on the page, burp, and whoosh, out goes Boba Fett. How they depicted him after he got belched out of the mouth of the Sarlacc, he's clinging to the side of the hill before you fall into the Sarlacc pit. But he is covered. I don't know. I assume he's covered in, it's just a real thin covering of dirt, enough to where he blends in with the dirt and he's completely covered. Maybe it's mud. Maybe he's just completely covered in mud, but you can't see his face. The only thing you can see is the outline of his body up against the earth. And along come the Jawas. So these are the little hooded guys, and they're picking up and scavenging like they normally do, and they find where Boba Fett is laying, and they pick him up. He's completely unconscious. He's not moved, so people don't know if he's dead or not. He's got his helmet on, and they even have this droid that looks similar to C-3PO. It's not him, but C-3PO, he says this, he goes, I think that is a droid of some sort, or a cyborg, although I doubt that it is intelligent. That droid sucks. I mean, if you can't look at that and figure out that that's a man, it's, unless the armor is that thick, but I mean, shoot, he looks like he's wearing pants. You can't figure out that that's an actual humanoid. Anyway, I don't know how that could confuse the droid, but it does. And they take Boba Fett, each Jawa grab a limb and slap him onto the land cruiser. Then we switch back to the Mos Eisley Cantina. That's right. Princess Leia and Han Solo land. I guess Chewbacca was not with them, but land the Millennium Falcon, and R2-D2, they all get off the Millennium Falcon and head into the bar. There's a bit of an issue with landing there, as nobody, of course, trusts Han Solo. So Princess Leia has to kind of come in and say, hey, by the way, I'm here, and she invokes some kind of crazy clearance that she has in order to land the Millennium Falcon there. And there's this funny interaction where he runs into this, I don't know, secretary, it's a banker. I'm sorry, it's a banker. So he's at the bank asking for his money. He's got money there. He's going to pick it up so he can pay some people back. And the banker's like, no, that account's been frozen. He goes, what? Why? And she goes, because if you must know, we were notified that the customer has been frozen. And Han says, I'm not frozen. He goes, and the banker says, well, how do I know that you are who you say you are? And he's like, you're Han Solo's frozen in carbonite. He's like, well, I got thawed out. So she says that she's not authorized to deal with customers who've done that. You'll have to take the matter up with the computer. Han Solo, poor guy, down on his luck. We talked about in Mark and I's discussion on Lando this past Monday, we talked about how Lando Calrissian has number one, he has 100 plus charisma, and he has plus 1,000 luck. I mean, that dude is lucky. Han Solo, he's skillful more than he is lucky. This is a perfect example of how things are not going his way, and he's not the most luckiest in the universe. Those lucky dice, though, they at least help out there on the Millennium Falcon. Maybe it's the dice that are enchanted. Those are the dice that he won the Millennium Falcon with. So anyway, Han storms out of the bank. He's upset. Princess Leia's trying to catch up with him. He says, look, so they wouldn't let you withdraw your credits? He says, that's right. She says, why not? Because someone told the computer I was out of circulation, and I don't know how to argue with computers, at least not without breaking them. Boy, things have not changed since 1984. But again, Leia's just like, look, I'm glad you're here at least. Then Leia gets an idea. Leia says, well, let's go talk to R2-D2. He knows how to talk to computers. So they go to try and find R2-D2, and they're not able to find him. But they have found little footprints on the floor. One of the things that they had said is that the Jawas, who, were pretty complicit with trading, now since the Empire has been defeated, things have gotten a little bit more aggressive on Tatooine. The Empire's not there to kind of lock things down. So the Jawas they said, are getting as violent, almost as violent as the Sand People are, and just as brash. So the Jawas go in and have apparently stolen R2-D2. So Han and Leia, on the case, they decide to go... They steal a couple land speeders from this guy, take off with them, and they are on the trail of the land cruiser, the closest land cruiser that's there. They know that R2-D2 is on there. As R2-D2 is trying to gather his bearings and figure out a way to get out of the predicament that he is in, as he always ends up in some kind of weird predicament, R2-D2's crawling across the floor of the Jawa land cruiser and bumps into Boba Fett. R2-D2 recognizes Boba Fett, but Boba Fett, again, still unconscious, just laying there, really. Really, you don't know if he's dead or alive. I mean, if you were reading this story, you would pretty much assume that he is dead. He's covered in dirt, he just got potentially eight, and he hasn't moved. Well, just as R2-D2 recognizes Boba Fett, Han and Leia are shooting at the land cruiser trying to get this thing to stop. As they are circling the land cruisers, the Jawas get out. Jawas have their blasters, and it seems like that's a bit of a surprise. Han's yelling out to Leia to watch out. The Jawas have blasters. R2 on the inside sees a potential way to escape and is just about to interface with the computer of the land cruiser. But before he can do that, the C-3PO looking droid shocks him. And then it's at this time that Boba Fett awakes. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, December 13th, 1983, this hits the shelves, and Boba Fett has, according to Marvel Comics, lived. Now listen, I know, this is issue 81. This series goes to issue 100 and something, if I remember correctly. So I know there's a lot of story, there's a lot of lore that Marvel Comics created that is not even looked at as part of, I think it's the whole thing. This series started in 77. So I think the whole series is not even considered as part of canon. But yes, Boba Fett has lived, and he's awakening here. Confused about his surroundings. He just attempts to try and get his bearings. Han Solo, still trying to fire on the land cruiser, is able to, just before his land speeder explodes, jump onto the land cruiser and crawl up, and he hops into it. All right. Now Leia, meanwhile, her land speeder got destroyed, and she's just kind of outside now, stuck on the ground. But she's yelling at Han. She realizes the Jawa cruiser is heading towards the Sarlacc pit. Han on the inside drops in, looks up, and sees Boba Fett with a gun drawn to his face, and he cannot believe what he's seeing. He's like, you died, man. I can't believe it. Now, Boba isn't saying anything. The droid that's behind him is telling him to kind of keep an eye on Han Solo, keep him at bay. Well, Boba Fett's not having any of that. I don't know if Boba Fett has an issue with droids, but he turns around, he kind of gives the droid a look, what are you doing ordering me around? Now Han's got to try and get out of the sand crawler. Well, this is called a sand crawler. We've been calling it a land cruiser. Sand crawler is what this thing is called. The Jawas outside of the sand crawler now are involved in a skirmish with some sand people. So that leaves Han Solo, Boba Fett, and R2-D2 try and figure out a way to get out of there. But Han Solo's like, well, here's Boba Fett. He's probably going to try and cash in and capture me and put me on a bounty. But Han Solo looks at Boba Fett and says, look, I know how you feel about me, but the only way we're getting out of here is teamwork. So I propose. And then Boba Fett interrupts him and goes, do I know you? Did I know you? So Boba Fett has lost his memory, does not recognize Han Solo. All right, now I see kind of where we're going, and you probably do too. However, Boba Fett helps Han Solo get to the top of the sandcrawler and also throws up R2-D2, which, boy, I figure R2-D2 weighs a good bit, but either way, he throws R2-D2 up. They're on top of the sandcrawler. Han throws them off of there, and they're slowly, but surely, they're not too far away from the Sarlacc pit. Han Solo looks down at Boba Fett inside the sandcrawler and reaches his hand out and says, come on, man, you've got to get out now. And at that time, Boba Fett starts to regain his memory. So Han Solo is again staring down the barrel of Boba Fett's gun. Uh-oh. Yep. And Han Solo's like, oh no, not now. At that point, Boba Fett fires off a shot, barely missing Han Solo. And Han's like, all right, I'm out. And jumps off of the sandcrawler. One panel later, Han Solo's midair off this sandcrawler. It falls right into the Sarlacc pit's maw. So the Sarlacc, I don't know, but I assume that either the Sarlacc is a big worm under the ground or the Sarlacc is part of the planet, or at least has made itself part of the planet. But the sandcrawler falls into the Sarlacc pit while Boba Fett is screaming, Solo! And the final two panels of this book are Han Solo, Princess Leia, R2-D2 looking over this pit, standing at the edge of this pit, just pretty much watching what happens. They don't show us, but they kind of watch what happens as smoke rises. You know, Han Solo says, I would have saved him. I really would have. I tried. And Princess Leia says, I know. He just wouldn't let me. So much for the brand new galaxy. Come on. It's a long walk back to Mos Eisley. And that's where we end it. And I can tell you that we do not pick up the next issue following the exploits of a resurrected Boba Fett. Now, as to whether that happens later on in the series, like I said, I think this thing goes to 104 issues? No, 108 issues. So maybe he does appear again. So there, I've got my answer. And you have yours as well. In Star Wars number 81, back in 1983, Boba Fett does live, but in the same comic, he dies again. You know, that's at least what we're led to believe. I don't know the chances are of a Sarlacc digesting a large sand crawler, but either way, Boba Fett did not get killed by the Sarlacc pit the first time. All right, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's my quick another Star Wars related episode right here from Source Material. I will bid you adieu. We'll check you out there next week, this coming Monday. You have a good one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Rattlich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word, and as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.